MLB March 3, 2018 12:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. March 3, 2018 12:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. With MLB spring training underway, all 30 teams are detailing what needs to get done to have a successful season, or at least one that is better than last year. Use left to right buttons to navigate. Swipe left to right to navigate. It's that time of year again, when baseball writers across America begin their MLB preview articles with "It's that time of year again." Sporting News has compiled a to-do list for every team, detailing what needs to get done to have a successful season, or at least one that was better than last year. After all, it's that time of year again. Clubs listed in alphabetical order. Getty Images by Alec Brzezinski. After losing to the Dodgers in the postseason last year, the Diamondbacks learned exactly what they need to do to make a true playoff run. With MVP candidate Paul Goldschmidt back in the fold and a young rotation developing into something special, Arizona isn't far from becoming a real threat for the World Series. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Here are 3 things on the Diamondbacks spring to-do list. 1. Take a good look at the bullpen. Archie Bradley, having resurrected his career as a reliever last season, is expected to close. Brad Boxberger was added to solidify the 8th inning, but the rest of the bullpen presents question marks. Even moving Bradley to closer is a gamble because he's never before held 9th inning duties. The Diamondbacks won't get far in the postseason with a lackluster bullpen. 2. Work on Jake Lamb's consistency. Jake Lamb, 27, is among the most talented third basemen in baseball, especially at the plate, where his immense power helped him hit 59 home runs over the past 2 seasons. Unfortunately for the Diamondbacks, Lamb has also batted below .250 both of those seasons, making him a frustrating player. Lamb hit .279 with 20 home runs and 67 RBIs before the All-Star break last season, but dipped to .207 with 10 home runs after the break. A little more consistency from Lamb would give Arizona valuable lineup depth. 3. Get over the loss of outfielder J.D. Martinez. J.D. Martinez is gone to the Red Sox, and with him the 29 home runs in just 62 games with the Diamondbacks last season, after coming over from Detroit in July. But the Diamondbacks hardly missed a beat, announcing Monday that they had agreed to a 2-year, $7.5 million deal with Jared Dyson shortly after the Red Sox announced a 5-year, $110 million contract with Martinez, clearly out of Arizona's price range, then reportedly acquiring Steven Souza from the Rays on Tuesday in a 3-team deal. Dyson, 33, led the Mariners with 28 stolen bases last season despite going out in September following core muscle surgery. Not only does he have the speed to play all 3 outfield positions, but he also provides a strong, positive clubhouse presence, and he has a World Series ring from his days with the Royals. Souza, 28, complements those attributes with power. He hit 30 homers last season for Tampa Bay and posted an .810 OPS that balanced out his .239 batting average. Getty Images by Thomas Lotter. Braves won 70 games for the first time since 2014, finishing with a 70-92 record in 2017, and there were legitimate signs of progress on the field. What Atlanta has to figure out now is how much it wants to improve this season, as it is figuring out when it wants to come out of rebuilding mode. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. So what is on the Braves to-do list this spring? 1. Deal with Dansby. As talented as Dansby Swanson may be, he has not lived up to the billing as the No. 1 overall draft pick. He hit .232 with 6 home runs in 144 games in 2017, but interestingly was good primarily in high-leverage situations. According to Baseball Reference, Swanson hit .319 in 111 plate appearances in high-leverage moments, but .199 in 255 low-leverage at-bats. Atlanta needs production from Swanson in all situations. That's what teams are supposed to get out of number 1 overall picks. If the Braves can turn him into a legit starting shortstop, that would be great. If he doesn't produce early, it may be time to consider trying someone else at his spot. 2. Make rotation decisions beyond Julio Teheran. There is very little settled in the Braves rotation. They have a fair number of pitchers with a decent amount of experience in Mike Foltynewicz and Brandon McCarthy, but there is little idea how their rotation will shake out. Is McCarthy the No. Two-starter or is it full-time Vitch? Who fills out the rotation? Is it Sean Newcomb, Max Fried, Luis Guevara, Lucas Sims, or insert 2017 minor leaguer's name here? They have a lot of options but very little set in stone. Point 3. Decide to rush or not to rush Acuna. At this point, if you follow the Braves, you know Ronald Acuna. The 20-year-old batted .325 across 3 levels in his age 19 season in 2017 and looks to be every bit of the best prospect in baseball. The Braves have some good players in their outfield led by Ender in chart, but they have no one who can match what Acuna can do. So do the Braves go ahead and give Acuna a shot, or start, or do they give him some more time to develop? That's a question Atlanta will have to answer this spring. Getty Images by Alec Brzezinski. The Orioles once again have an intriguing lineup in place heading into the 2018 season, but face similar problems with the rotation. Can they fix it in time to make the postseason? Baltimore struggled last season in a tough AL East. While Manny Machado was floated as a possible trade piece this winter, he's still on the roster playing a new position this season. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Here are 3 things on the Orioles' to-do list. 1. Find out if Machado can succeed at shortstop with just 1 year left on his contract. Machado was linked with a number of teams this offseason, but his desire to play shortstop helped keep him in Baltimore. The Orioles will move Tim Beckham to third base, which gives them an athletic infield. Machado hit .259 with 33 home runs and 95 RBIs last season, but the Orioles have to ensure switching positions won't affect his hitting. The Orioles need to use spring training to decide if the switch is worth it. Machado's bat makes him elite, and he's won 2 Gold Gloves at third base. 2. Add a couple more arms to the starting rotation. Baltimore's rotation is in desperate need of a makeover. Kevin Gausman and Dylan Bundy appear poised to lead the way right now, but the Orioles lack depth behind them. Gabriel Ynoa, 24, could be an X-factor, and the Orioles did sign Andrew Cashner, but Baltimore should add a couple more established names this spring if it wants to compete. Baltimore had been linked with Jake Odorizzi, recently traded to Twins, and Astros long reliever Colin McHugh, and some intriguing free agents remain on the market. A Jake Arrieta reunion. It appears the Orioles are willing to bring a few more pitchers in this spring, which should help them remain competitive in the AL East. 3. Figure out right field opening. The Orioles would likely rather have Mark Trumbo serve as designated hitter, which leaves a huge hole at right field. Austin Hayes, 22, who had 13 hits in 60 at-bats last season, seems like the leader to earn the job, but it wouldn't hurt Baltimore to add the likes of Carlos Gonzalez or Carlos Gomez for competition. Getty Images by Alec Brzezinski. The Red Sox have looked like world beaters at times during the last 2 seasons, but haven't been able to produce long postseason runs. Can that change this season? Boston has been quiet this offseason, playing cat and mouse with high-priced free agents such as J.D. Martinez and Eric Hosmer. The Sox also reportedly turned down a trade for Yasiel Puig. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. While the Red Sox have failed to win a playoff series since 2013, they still boast one of the strongest rosters on paper entering the 2018 season. Here are 3 things on the Red Sox's to-do list. 1. Figure out any last-minute roster moves. Will they sign a high-priced free agent? Will they trade Jackie Bradley Jr. for a slugger? Will they sign one of the free agent starting pitchers? These are decisions the Red Sox should have already made, and desperately need to make now. It's important for team cohesiveness once spring training starts. Players like to know where they stand, and the Red Sox seem unsettled despite having a solid lineup and rotation. The outfield trio of Bradley, Mookie Betts and Andrew Benintendi is one any team would take. Boston needs to focus on winning with the lineup already in place. 2. Solidify rotation. Boston's rotation, in its current state, is fine. Chris Sale, David Price, Drew Pomeranz and Rick Porcello offer a formidable 4-man postseason rotation, but injuries have been an issue for this group. The Red Sox may feel compelled to sign an Alex Cobb or Lance Lynn to make sure they have depth should Price or Pomeranz suffer another injury. Price and Porcello also possess poor playoff records and Sale has limited playoff experience. If the Red Sox do make another move, it should be a starting pitcher. 3. Have Alex Cora establish his presence like the Yankees with Aaron Boone. Boston opted to hire an inexperienced manager this offseason to try to help spark the team. Cora, 42, spent last season as a bench coach for the World Series winning Astros, and had previously been an ESPN analyst. While Cora appears to be a player's manager, he will have to earn the trust in the spring. The Red Sox have had tumultuous dugouts in years past, leading to discord and distracted play. Cora has to nip that in the bud and get the most out of his talented squad this year. Getty Images by Ron Clements. The Cubs made a late charge last season to win the National League Central. The 2016 MLB champions will look to return to the World Series after getting bounced by the Dodgers in the 2017 NL Championship Series. The Cubs didn't make a lot of moves this offseason, but they already have the pieces in place to make another postseason run. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Here are 3 things on the Cubs' to-do list this spring. 1. Start strong. The Cubs were playing catch-up most of 2017 as the Brewers led the Central for most of the season. While Milwaukee fell off at the end and the Cubs eventually won the division, Chicago clearly had the most talent of any team in the Central, and still do. The Cubs also added prized free agent Yu Darvish to the rotation that was already one of the best in baseball. If the Cubs can keep the chemistry they had in 2016 and the latter part of 2017 for the start of the 2018 season, they can play frontrunners all year. 2. Figure out what to do with Kyle Schwarber. Schwarber is a dangerous hitter, but he strikes out far too much to play every day. Schwarber hit 30 home runs last season, but with only 59 RBIs. He struck out 150 times and had a batting average of just .211. The Cubs insist on using the 24-year-old catcher in left field and want him to be a full-time outfielder, but he just is not very adept at chasing down balls in left. Schwarber deserves a spot somewhere in the lineup, but with Wilson Contreras entrenched behind the plate, it will be hard to keep Schwarber in left if he continues to struggle. 3. Preach plate discipline. Schwarber had a terrible 30.9% strikeout rate last year, but he isn't the only Cubs player who needs to be more choosy at the plate. Infielders Addison Russell and Javier Baez, while both defensive wizards, have struggled in the batter's box. Russell had a slash line of .239, .304, .418 in 2017 and struck out 23.6% of the time. Baez had a strikeout percentage of 28.3 and only drew a walk in 5.9% of his plate appearances. If the Cubs can get Russell and Baez to draw more walks and put balls into play this season, the Cubs will be difficult to stop. Getty Images by Joe Rogers. The White Sox were 4th in the AL Central in 2017. Gone are RHP Miguel Gonzalez and catcher Wellington Castillo, while C. Giovanni Soto, RHP Mike Pelfrey, RHP Al Albuquerque, RHP Jake Petrica, OF2B Alan Hansen and RHP Zach Putnam join a talented stable of young players in Chicago. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. What's on the White Sox to-do list this spring? 1. Hope Eloy Jimenez and Matt Davidson mature. Chicago's wealth of young talent, Yoan Moncada, Lucas Giolito, Reynaldo Lopez, and Michael Kopech, is well documented. But the biggest needs of the big league club come in the outfield and at third base. Jimenez .353, .397, .559 in Double-A last season, and Luis Robert .310, .491, .536 in DSL, are tabbed to be future outfield stars for the White Sox, and Jimenez could contribute this season. Davidson has power, great raw power in fact, as evidenced by his .232 ISO last season, but his plate discipline was terrible and his .220 average and .285 BABIP were poor. The 26-year-old has showed he's capable of patience at the plate in Triple-A, and this season he needs to show it for a full season as he holds a small grip on playing time at the hot corner. 2. Sign a spot starter. Carlos Rodon, shoulder, is expected to miss start of season and the Sox need back-end rotation help as it is. Likely opening day starter James Shields has been terrible the past 2 seasons and will likely be gone next year. Why not sign a serviceable and affordable back-end pitcher to fill starts and keep around next season to help mentor the young talent? Luckily for the club, there are plenty available targets on the stagnant free agent market, including Jeremy Hellickson and Chris Tillman. 3. Find a reliever to count on. Can the Sox trust Joakim Soria to be the team's closer? He's blown 14 saves over the past 2 seasons, has a weak fastball, and allowed a .273 batting average with 2 outs and runners in scoring position last season. The 33-year-old's best days are behind him, but he's currently the best option ahead of Juan Minna, Jean-Marc Gomez and Bruce Rondon. They don't need to go after all-star reliever Greg Holland, but a late-inning insurance arm would be nice for the White Sox. Getty Images by Ron Clemens. Look up and down the Reds roster and there might be only a handful of names the casual baseball fan will recognize. Center fielder Billy Hamilton is one of baseball's best base stealers and a top-notch defender. Adam Duvall has been a serviceable left fielder. Second baseman Scoot Gennett had a breakout season last year with 27 home runs and 97 RBIs after coming over from Milwaukee. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Then there's all-star first baseman Joey Votto, one of the best players in baseball. Votto has spent his entire 11-year career with the Reds and was the 2010 NL MVP. The 5-time All-Star has made only 3 postseason appearances and there likely won't be one coming this season. Unfortunately for Votto, his standout career is being wasted on a team that has lacked talent around him for years. Here are 3 things on the Reds' to-do list this spring. 1. Find pitching somewhere just like last year, when the Reds' team era was the second worst in baseball at 5.17. Cincinnati's biggest weakness is on the mound. The Reds are rolling 8 deep with starting pitchers this spring as they try to determine a 5-man rotation. While Anthony DeSclafani, who missed all of 2017 with an elbow injury, is penciled in as the #1 starter, the most promising pitcher might be Luis Castillo. The 25-year-old right-hander was just 3-7 last year, but had a respectable 3.12 ERA in 89 and a third innings pitched. Veteran Homer Bailey saw his ERA balloon to 6.43 in 91 innings last year, and 24-year-old Brandon Finnegan has just 4 MLB starts. The Reds have a lot of questions to answer about their starting rotation, and it might be a season-long experiment. 2. Find a spot for prospect Nick Senzel. Eugenio Suarez in Cincinnati's starting third baseman, and he hit a respectable .260 with 26 homers and 82 RBIs last year. He displayed much better plate discipline last year compared to 2016. Suarez struck out 155 times with just 51 walks in 2016 but cut his strikeouts to 147 last year with 84 bases on balls in 31 fewer at-bats. While Suarez will be the opening day starter, the Reds have to find a way to get Senzel some big league at-bats. The 22-year-old Georgia native is one of the top prospects in baseball, and the Reds need to see what he can do at the highest level. Senzel is expected to be used this spring at multiple infield spots. 3. Lay groundwork from the trade deadline. Scouring this spring for attractive pieces they might want to add is good goal. The Reds almost certainly will be out of contention by the trade deadline and could continue to build toward the future. Should they decide to trade Votto to a contender, and he agrees to waive his no-trade clause, they certainly could get a wealth of young talent in return. Even if the Reds hang on to Votto, there are other pieces they could move to upgrade not just the MLB roster, but the farm teams as well. Getty Images by Joe Rogers. The Cleveland Indians won the AL Central in 2017 with the best record in the league. Joining the club is 1B DH Yonder Alonso of Melvin Upton Jr. and RHP Alexio Gando. Outer sluggers Carlos Santana and Jay Bruce, RHP Brian Shaw, RHP Joe Smith of Austin Jackson and LHP Boone Logan. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. What's on the to-do list this spring? 1. Find a reliable 7th-inning reliever. With the departures of Smith, Brian Shaw, the Tribe needs a reliable setup man to bridge the gap from starter to Andrew Miller and Cody Allen. The stagnant free agent market has left plenty of quality relievers unsigned, including Greg Holland and Andrew Bailey. As it stands, 30-year-old right-hander Zach McAllister, who was 2-2 with a 2.61 ERA in 50 relief appearances last year, and Dan Otero, 8-1, 2.14 ERA over past 2 seasons, could share duties. 2. revamp outfield production. After letting Bruce walk, the Indians will rely heavily on a bounce-back season from Michael Brantley, who has battled injuries the past 2 seasons, and sophomore Bradley Zimmer for outfield production. Speaking of bounce-back years, the Indians will need more from Jason Kipnis, who may not be the starting second baseman this year, which would leave an even bigger hole at third base. 3. Pay Francisco Lindor. Thanks to a leak from Indians general manager Mike Chernoff's son back in spring training last year, we know the tribe was allegedly trying to sign Lindor to a 7-year extension. Now, with every passing season the club doesn't make a deal, the price for Lindor will increase, assuming he continues to perform at an all-star level. Lindor, 24, isn't even arbitration eligible until after 2018 and is under team control through 2021, but the Indians need to make him the face of the franchise well before then. By Alec Brzezinski. After nearly losing a large lead, the Rockies snuck into the postseason last year as the National League's second wildcard team. Can they improve this season? Blessed with one of the best lineups in baseball, Colorado should contend for a playoff run. Pitching, as always, could be an issue, but Bud Black has this team playing with confidence. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. The Rockies are toying with the idea of moving Charlie Blackmon out of the leadoff spot to get him near Nolan Arenado in the lineup. If Black opts to go that route, DJ LeMahieu or Gerardo Parra could bat leadoff. Here are 3 things on the Rockies' to-do list this spring. 1. Find a first baseman with Eric Hosmer off the market. Colorado may not have many options to upgrade here. The Rockies have 23-year-old Ryan McMahon penciled in to start at first base. While McMahon is a promising prospect, a more experienced bat could elevate Colorado from a team hoping to creep into the postseason to a team no one wants to play in the postseason. Lucas Duda or Logan Morrison could be intriguing options to add as free agency winds down and the season begins. 2. Try to fix rotation. It is difficult for the Rockies to address this need because top pitchers avoid Coors Field like the plague, but Colorado's rotation looks especially rough right now. John Gray and Chad Batters are legitimate starters, but behind them the Rockies start running into some trouble. The starting pitching market is starting to dry up, but Jake Arrieta is available and he likely wants to win now. Having pitched in Camden Yards, Arrieta is no stranger to hitter-friendly ballparks. Colorado could be a good fit. 3. Get Trevor Story back on track. In the first half of 2016, Story broke out as one of MLB's top young players. Last year, after battling injury, he took a step back only to heat up again toward the end of the season. If he can put together his first half of 2016 and second half of 2017, he could help the Rockies become elite. Story has 51 MLB home runs through just 242 games played. His average dropped from .272 to .239 last year, so the Rockies will be looking for a little more consistency in year 3. Getty Images by Joe Rogers. The Tigers finished last in the AL Central in 2017 with one of the worst records, 64-98 in MLB. Gone are the likes of ace Justin Verlander, sluggers Justin Upton and J.D. Martinez, manager Brad Osmus, 2B Ian Kinsler, LHP Justin Wilson, RHP Anibal Sanchez, INF Andrew Romiani and RHP Bruce Rondon. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Joining the club are of Leonis Martin, RHP Mike Fears and of Victor Reyes. What's on the Tigers' to-do list this spring? 1. Re-evaluate talent. Detroit parted ways with a number of all-star veterans last season, leaving pitching and outfield needs. Heck, the Tigers will have holes pretty much everywhere this season, but it will give the front office plenty of time to evaluate the talent they have. Testing young talent in Dixon Machado, John Hicks, Joe Jimenez and Jaime Candelario for different roles isn't a bad thing. Machado can be an everyday shortstop, Hicks can play first and catcher, Jimenez can close, Candelario can DH. Versatility is a good thing, and if it doesn't work out, what's the worst that is going to happen? The Tigers lose 105 games instead of 100. 2. Build the farm. System manager Ron Gardenhire will lead the rebuild, but the Tigers need to continue reducing payroll. General manager Al Avila has done a good job getting expensive veterans off the books, but there is still a way to go. Sadly for fans, that may include Miguel Cabrera, who has $184 million remaining on his contract. Cabrera hit just .249 last season but is a career .317, .395, .553 batter. If he gets hot this season, look for the Tigers to ship him to a contender, although they'll likely have to eat some of the 34-year-old's contract. Michael Fulmer could also be traded to help build the farm system, which was depleted by former GM Dave Dombrowski and still has a long way to go to become a top 10 pipeline. Victor Martinez, 39, will be a free agent in 2019 and is a likely deadline asset, but the Tigers don't figure to get much in return for the DH3. Embrace the rebuild. The Tigers are in for a long and painful rebuild, and multiple 100-loss seasons aren't out of the question. After successful seasons from 2006 to 14, the Tigers are now in a similar situation as the Astros were in 2011. People often forget the Astros were a great team from 1997 to 2006 before a long, dark rebuild returned them to prominence. Avila and the Tigers need to take the same approach and embrace the rebuild. The next 3 seasons will be terrible, but good times are on the horizon despite how bleak it may seem now. Getty Images by Thomas Lotter. Astros won the first World Series in club history in 2017, taking out the Dodgers in 7 games. They have a chance to be the first team to repeat as champions since the 1998, 1999 and 2000 Yankees, and they arguably will be even better this season than the last. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. What is on the to-do list this spring? 1. Make Gerrit Cole great again. Cole finished 4th in National League Cy Young voting with the Pirates in 2015, but is coming off the worst year of his career. Cole went 12-12 with a 4.26 ERA and gave up 31 home runs after never allowing more than 11 in a single season. The Astros acquired him in a trade in the offseason, and pitching coach Brent Strom is tasked with getting him back to form this year. So how will he do it? He'll get Cole to take his foot off the gas. Strom is famous for getting his pitchers to pitch backwards and use their off-speed pitches more often. Houston starters all had career highs in breaking pitches thrown in 2017, and look out for Cole to use his slider and curveball more often this season. 2. Choose a lefty reliever. The Astros had holes in the bullpen in 2017, but none was more glaring than the lack of a true lefty specialist. Tony Sipp, 5.79 ERA, Francisco Liriano, 4.40 ERA, and Raymond Goodwin, 7.88 ERA, combined to lead the Astros' lefty production out of the pen during the season, and none made a big enough impact to warrant a vote of confidence. In 2018, Houston added Anthony Gose in the Rule 5 draft and Buddy Bosh's in free agency, and they returned Goodwin and Sipp to the roster this season. Those 4 will battle it out for the role of LOGY lefty one-out guy for the Astros. 3. Accelerate Derek Fisher's maturation process. The Astros have to either groom Fisher to be the club's everyday left fielder, or they need to resign themselves to him being trade bait. With Jake Marisnick coming back from injury and Marwan Gonzalez more than capable of holding down left field in a platoon role, the Astros have to make a decision with Fisher. Kyle Tucker is possibly less than a year away from earning an outfield spot in Houston, and if Fisher cannot grab a hold of the starting spot in left field, the team needs to seriously consider trading him for another reliever, possibly of the left-handed variety. Getty Images by Joe Rogers. The Royals were 3rd in the AL Central in 2017. Joining the club is RHP Trevor Wilkes, RHP Jesse Hahn, RHP Scott Barlow and RHP Wiley Peralta. Gonna CF Lorenzo Kane, 3B Mike Moustakas, LHP Jason Vargas, RHP Joakim Soria, LHP Scott Alexander and DH Brandon Moss. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. What's on the Royals' to-do list this spring? 1. Accept losing Eric Hosmer. The Royals weren't able to re-sign Hosmer, and that is fine. 8 years and a reported $144 million with the Padres is not a contract Kansas City is in a position to match, with Hosmer moving on. The core group that won 2 AL pennants and the 2015 World Series is gone, and so, too, are any hopes of staying above .50. Kansas City isn't going to be very good next season, but at least they have a World Series title to show for the recent efforts. Now general manager Dayton Moore has an opportunity to lighten the payroll and build a championship-winning roster from scratch yet again. 2. Make Alex Gordon great again. Kansas City isn't likely to re-sign Mike Moustakas but needs rebound seasons from Alcides Escobar and Gordon. After signing a $72 million deal prior to 2016, Gordon has hit .220 and .208 in 2 seasons since. He was dumped to the No. 9 spot last season but changed his approach late in the year. He tried to hit the opposite way and it paid dividends with a respectable .278 in his last 24 games. Gordon gets it done defensively but needs to return to his .271, .377, .432 ways of 2015. 3. Turn Wiley Peralta. The Royals' track record of turning poor starters into reliable relievers needs to continue with Peralta, who was picked up this winter from the Brewers. Peralta's fastball averaged 96 miles per hour last season, but he was designated for assignment after recording a 7.85 ERA in 19 appearances. The 28-year-old is just 3 seasons removed from a 17-11 record and 3.53 ERA in 2014. Getty Images by Thomas Lotter. Angels finished 80-82 and a distant second in the AL West in 2017. This may not be the year to win a World Series, but it is without a doubt the time to steal headlines as they go into the season with perennial MVP candidate Mike Trout and rookie Japanese sensation Shohei Ohtani. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. They also made some interesting additions to the roster which give them more than a chance to grab a wild card spot, and maybe even factor into the AL West title race. So what is on the to-do list this spring? 1. Get Zach Cozart adjusted to third base. The Angels signed former Reds shortstop Cozart to a 3-year, $38 million contract this offseason, which is great. However, they're planning to play him at third base, which he has never played at the MLB level. He has played games at second base in the minors but never at third. Cozart was signed for his bat, so getting him ready to be adequate at third is going to be far more important than turning him into a Gold Glover. He hit a career-high 24 home runs in 122 games in 2017, and the extra pop added to the Angels lineup is far more important in the long run. 2. Start the grand Shohei Ohtani experiment. Ohtani wants to pitch and hit at the MLB level in 2018. Spring training will be the first chance the Angels get to see how he can deal with doing both on a schedule at the highest level of baseball in the world. There is going to be quite a bit of trial and error as Ohtani and the Angels experiment in March. 3. Find a closer. This one is simple. The Angels were tied for 9th in saves in MLB with 43 in 2017, but they lost Bud Norris in free agency and he led LA with 19 saves last season. The Angels started the year with Cam Bedrosian as the man at the back of the pen, but injuries knocked him out of the role and he never got back to it. Getty Images by Alec Brzezinski. The Dodgers fell just short of a World Series title last year, but look poised to make another long postseason run in 2018. Clayton Kershaw leads a deep rotation and the lineup was a pleasant surprise last season as Justin Turner, Chris Taylor and Cody Bellinger all stepped up. But can they repeat the success again this season? More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Here are 3 things on the Dodgers' spring to-do list. 1. Solidify the bullpen. The Dodgers' bullpen was nearly unstoppable during last year's postseason, but losing Brandon Morrow to the Cubs could hurt, and Tony Watson remains unsigned. Los Angeles has some question marks behind closer Kenley Jansen, ones that need to be answered before spring ends. The Dodgers may not have to add any more players to the bullpen, especially if Tony Cingrani and Josh Fields continue to impress, but LA proved last season that a quality bullpen is essential to postseason success. 2. Figure out the Matt Kemp situation. The Dodgers acquired Kemp from the Braves this offseason in a cash dump geared for next offseason's free agency, but they don't seem keen on keeping the 33-year-old two-time All-Star on the roster. Speculation has gone back and forth regarding Kemp's trade prospects, but he remains on the Dodgers roster for now. If Los Angeles does hope to trade Kemp, it would suit the player and team to do it before the end of spring. While Kemp has battled injuries in recent seasons, he's too talented to sit on the bench, and his presence could unsettle young rising stars Jock Peterson and Yasiel Puig. 3. strongly consider signing Neil Walker. Second base appears to be the Dodgers' most glaring weakness on paper. Logan Forsythe struggled last season, and the Dodgers could use another solid bat to help solidify the lineup. Neil Walker, a free agent, has 76 home runs over the last 4 seasons and he's a career .272 hitter. Walker, 32, ticks all of the Dodgers' boxes for what they want in a hitter. He gets on base .362 OBP last season, has power and draws walks 55. With Forsythe and Chase Utley on the roster, this move may not happen, but it would help the Dodgers. By Thomas Lotter. Marlins sold just about everyone of value this offseason, trading away their entire starting outfield and a veteran second baseman. The fan base isn't happy. Much worse, many of the remaining players aren't happy, and that must be what they address first before the season begins. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. So what is on the Marlins' to-do list this spring? 1. Mend fences with the players the Marlins either were unable to trade or refused to trade catcher JT Realmuto and newly acquired infielder Starlin Castro, and they have to smooth things over with the two. Realmuto is a big piece going forward, and Castro can help the transition. If they aren't with the program, then the season could go from a bad start to a horrendous finish. 2. Determine if Lewis Brinson is ready to start. Lewis Brinson was the most important piece in the Christian Yelich trade. He was a 2017 All-Star Futures Game participant, a former first-round pick and a top 100 prospect according to MLB Pipeline for the last 3 years, but after a .106 batting average in 47 at-bats with the Brewers last season and a second trade in 3 years, there is some doubt surrounding his future MLB career. He is key to the Marlins' rebuild, and if he is not ready to contribute at the start of the season, then the fanbase may be even more mad when the schedule starts. 3. Work on plate discipline. The Marlins did not draw many walks last season, and they lost Giancarlo Stanton, Yelich and Marcell Ozuna, who were 1, 2, 3 in bases on balls for Miami in 2017. The Marlins were 24th in MLB in walks in 2017 and added players who walk even less than the players they lost. Analytically, if they want to rebuild, then it will start with getting on base, and drawing walks is a big piece of that. With a whole new crew of players, they can start the trend of taking more walks than they used to. That can start in spring training. Getty Images by Ron Clements. The Brewers were one of the biggest surprises in 2017. A team not many expected to be very good wound up leading the NL Central for most of the season before tailing off at the end of the season and finishing 6 games behind the Cubs for the division title. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Brewers manager Craig Counsell garnered Manager of the Year consideration following the 86-76 season, and there is a lot of optimism heading into the 2018 campaign. The Brewers have been aggressive this off-season. The biggest move was trading promising prospect Lewis Brinson to the Marlins for outfielder Christian Yelich. They signed former Royals outfielder Lorenzo Cain on the same day to give Milwaukee a potent lineup that already included 2011 NL MVP Ryan Braun, third baseman Travis Shaw and first baseman Eric Thames, who had a breakout season last year. Here are 3 things on the Brewers' to-do list this spring. 1. Solidify the starting rotation. The Brewers missed out on landing free agent pitcher Yu Darvish, who signed with the rival Cubs. Darvish could have been a solid veteran on the young pitching staff. Milwaukee does have a pretty good trio in Zach Davies, who enters spring training as the #1 starter, Jimmy Nelson and Chase Anderson. That's where the rotation falls off, as journeyman Jhoulys Chacin is penciled in as the No. 4 starter, with Junior Guerra rounding out the rotation. The staff should get a boost with the return of Nelson, who missed the final month of the 2017 season with a shoulder injury. Nelson had gone 12-6 with 199 strikeouts and a 3.49 ERA. The Brewers have not had a 20-game winner since Teddy Higuera in 1986. Davies or Anderson have the potential this year, but those two alone won't be able to get the Brewers to the playoffs. If 31-year-old Giovanni Gallardo, who is back with the Brewers after spending 3 seasons in the American League, can rediscover the form that made him an All-Star in 2010, Milwaukee just might have a rotation deep enough to contend. 2. Fix the bullpen. Corey Knebel took over closer duties for the Brewers last year after Neftali Felice was demoted early in the season. Nebel wound up going to the All-Star game and recorded 39 saves. But he also blew 6 saves, and several other games were more stressful than they needed to be because of Nebel's inconsistency. While Nebel will enter the season as a closer, Milwaukee's biggest problem is the middle relief. The Brewers' bullpen had a solid ERA of 3.83, but posted a 27-36 record and had 25 total blown saves. Those were games that cost the Brewers a division title and resulted in a second-place finish 6 games back of the Cubs. Point 3. Play better defense. Only Oakland committed more errors than Milwaukee in 2017. As much as the bullpen was an issue last year, so was the defense. Adding a Gold Glove winner like Yelich in the outfield will help some, but the Brewers cannot be sloppy in the infield. Of the 4 worst defenses in baseball last year, only the Brewers had a winning record thanks to the offense. If Milwaukee is going to be a contender in the NL Central this year, players like shortstop Orlando Archer, who had an NL high 20 errors, must play with better focus. Getty Images by Joe Rogers. The Twins caught fire and were an AL wild card in 2017. New to the club this season are RHP Fernando Rodney, RHP Jake Odorizzi, RHP Anibal Sanchez, RHP Addison Reed, LHP Zach Duke and RHP Michael Pineda. Gone are RHP Matt Bellal, RHP Bartolo Colon, catcher Chris Jimenez, LHP Hector Santiago, LHP Glenn Perkins, LHP Buddy Bosches, RHP Michael Tonkin and RHP Dylan G. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. What's on the Twins' to-do list this spring? 1. Sign another starter worth ace Irvin Santana at 10 to 12 weeks after surgery and Pineda recovering from Tommy John surgery. The Twins need to add an innings-eating starter, even after the additions of Jake Odorizzi and Anibal Sanchez. Don't know if it's done, manager Paul Molitor said of any possible additions after the Odorizzi trade. I think that you stay open-minded about things that are still out there. But I think that it puts us in good shape. No disrespect to the people involved, but we've talked for a while about being able to bump some of the guys on the bottom end of the starting rotation competition to try to strengthen the upper half. It deepens us. Luckily for the club, there are plenty available back-end targets on the stagnant free agent market, including Alex Cobb, Lance Lynn and Scott Feldman. Point 2. Contingency plan for Miguel Sano. The club also needs a contingency plan for Sano, who was accused of UAL assault by a photographer for a Twins website in December. She alleges Minnesota's all-star third baseman assaulted her in 2015. Sano, who signed with the Twins in 2009 and made his MLB debut in 2015, maintains his innocence. He is also recovering from surgery on a shin injury that forced him to miss the last 6 weeks of the season. If Sano is suspended under MLB's domestic violence policy, can the Twins continue to count on the production of Eduardo Escobar? 3. Add a bullpen arm. Last season, Twins relievers ranked 22nd in MLB with a 4.40 ERA. Newcomer Rodney, 40, will open as the closer, but Addison Reed and Taylor Rogers need to be ready for the inconsistency of Rodney. Returning 26-year-old relievers Trevor Hildenberger, Tyler Duffy and Alan Busnitz also could see action late in games, but all-star Greg Holland remains available. Getty Images by Thomas Lawton. A division where the Nationals are the clear favorites. The rest of the teams are simply battling for a wild card spot. The Mets are one of those teams that could very well make the playoffs if they stay healthy. That is a big if though, and the success will start with the rotation. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. So what is on the Mets' to-do list this spring? 1. Get Matt Harvey right. It's easy to say the Mets should get Noah Syndergaard healthy and go from there, but there are much fewer questions about Syndergaard than Harvey, who has been a different pitcher the past 2 years. Every bit of that has to do with diminished velocity. He's throwing slower and therefore using more breaking pitches. But if the Mets can first get his fastball command right, then he can succeed with diminishing velocity. Mariners ace Felix Hernandez has proved that over the last few years. If the Mets get Harvey pitching like Harvey again, then they will be in the wild card conversation. Point 2. Make a decision on Dominic Smith. The Mets picked up Adrian Gonzalez in free agency this offseason, so they think they have the first base spot lined up for the year. Now they have to figure out what the plan is for Dominic Smith. They want him to be the first baseman of the future, but if they leave him on the MLB team behind Gonzalez, they are robbing him of valuable at-bats that aid his development. They need to figure out whether to start him at AAA and get him more reps or simply use him as a man off the bench. The former might be the better idea. Point 3. Figure out a bullpen pecking order. The bullpen was bad last season as it was 29th in all of baseball with a 4.82 ERA. The Mets went out and essentially fixed the pen as they picked up Anthony Swarak in the offseason after trading for A.J. Ramos before the trade deadline. They simply need to figure out who goes where. It's a good problem to have after all the trouble they had last season. Getty Images by Alec Brzezinski. The Yankees surprised everyone by nearly reaching the World Series last season. Can they build on that success in 2018? New York spent a couple years building up its farm system, but returned to its spending ways this year, trading for Giancarlo Stanton and taking on his massive contract. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Here are 3 things on the Yankees' to-do list. 1. Make sure new manager Aaron Boone fits in with their young core. Even though the young Yankees nearly reached the World Series, they fired Joe Girardi after the season and took a chance on former ESPN analyst Aaron Boone. While Boone is an amiable guy who should do well in the clubhouse, it was a risk hiring him when the team has such high expectations. Boone's hiring was controversial because so many players stood by Girardi. But now that Boone is in charge, he must assert his own identity into the team during the spring so the Yankees can get off to a quick start. Point 2. Integrate Giancarlo Stanton, Greg Bird and Gleyber Torres into the lineup. One of the Yankees' challenges this spring will be figuring out the desired batting order. Brett Gardner and Jacoby Ellsbury seem like ideal fits for leadoff, and Didi Gregorius proved he could handle the number 2 spot, but what will 3 to 6 look like? Aaron Judge, after belting 52 home runs as a rookie last season, could bat third with Stanton right behind him at cleanup. That seems like the most logical situation. Bird would then bat fifth with Sanchez sixth and Hicks seventh. It's a good problem to have, but the Yankees need to figure out a batting order this spring. Torres, though talented, should bat ninth in this supercharged lineup. Point 3. Find a consistent fourth starter for the postseason. This player may already be on the roster. CC Sabathia returned on a 1-year deal and he surprised with solid form last season, and into the postseason. But the Yankees are a little thin in the rotation behind Luis Severino, Masahiro Tanaka and Sonny Gray. The Yankees have been in search of another pitcher this offseason, having been linked with Jarrett Cole before he went to the Astros. They were also linked with Yu Darvish, Michael Fulmer and Chris Archer. The Yankees need to add one more solid arm, but it doesn't have to happen right now. The July 31st trade deadline could be a good time for them to reassess their needs and act accordingly. Getty by Thomas Lotter. Athletics finished last in the AL West in 2017 with a 75-87 record, but with young, talented players on its roster, Oakland comes into 2018 with some optimism. The A's added Dustin Fowler to their outfield and returned Sean Manaea, Chris Davis and rising star Matt Chapman. They have the skills to win, but they have to iron some things out before the season. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. So what is on the to-do list this spring? 1. Settle center field. Picking up Dustin Fowler in a trade for Sonny Gray was big, but he's coming off of a devastating knee injury he suffered in his MLB debut last season. If he's the same player as before the injury, the A's could have a star. If he takes the while to get back, they could have a problem on their hands. Either way, Oakland will do all it can to get Fowler up to speed in spring training. Point 2. Focus on good starts. The Athletics have a lot of talented, yet inexperienced, pitchers in the rotation, and it showed in 2017. Only one of the 2018 projected starters had an ERA under 4.00 last season, and it had everything to do with the first time through the lineup. Manaea, Jarrell Cotton and Kendall Graveman all allowed batters to hit better than .275 the first time through the order. They got better the second time through, but if teams are allowed to get off to good starts, then the A's, who were 24th in team batting average last season, will be forced to play from behind. Oakland needs to work on getting ahead in counts and getting outs in the early going in the month before the season starts. Point 3. Set the rotation. Graveman and Mania have been reliable enough over the last few seasons, but beyond them it's anybody's guess how the rotation shakes out. Daniel Mengden was good in limited time, but he is inexperienced, and Cotton and Paul Blackburn have been hit and miss as well. The A's don't need to just shore up the end of the rotation, they have to get most of it figured out. Getty Images by Thomas Lotteries. Hoskins may have won the National League Rookie of the Year award had he played a full season in 2017, but he still hit 18 home runs in 50 games and awoke a fan base in Philadelphia that was starved for a star. The Phillies have reinforcements coming, but they have plenty on the plate before the regular season gets started. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. So what is on the Phillies' to-do list this spring? 1. Commit to Crawford or not. JP. Crawford may be as good defensively as a Francisco Lindor or Andrelton Simmons, but like with Simmons, there is fear about his bat, and if a player can't hit, he loses his spot. Crawford batted .214 in 23 MLB games last year and .243 in 127 games at AAA. After batting no worse than .285 in his first 3 minor league seasons, Crawford has failed to eclipse .250 over his last 2 years. Will he hit enough to be an everyday player? Will the Phillies give him a chance to find out at the start of the season? 2. Consider adding to the rotation. The Phillies have some talent in the rotation, but they have far more questions than answers. The biggest question is, do they go out and add a starter like a Lance Lynn or an Alex Cobb? They have the money and may be close enough to competing to do so, but do they want to? Losing pays in MLB, and the Phillies are in a position to lose once again. If they add a starter, they could win enough to get a much lower draft pick. They'll have to figure out if they want to compete now or wait another year at 2.3. Build Vince Velasquez's confidence. There is no starter in Phillies' prospective rotation with better stuff than Velasquez. With a fastball into the upper 90s, a good curveball and changeup, Velasquez quite often has no hit stuff when he steps on the mound. What he lacks is confidence, and it is clear in how he pitched last season. He threw more curveballs in 2017 and it hurt him. He had a career-worst 5.13 ERA last season, nearly a run worse per game than the year before. Building his confidence will be key to Phillies' season, and it will start by getting back to throwing both his fastball and slider more frequently. Getty Images by Ron Clements. The Pirates sent a clear message this offseason. They are in a youth movement. After dealing away star players like Andrew McCutchen and Jarrett Cole, the Pirates are rebuilding and expectations are not high for 2018. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Just don't tell that to manager Clint Hurdle, who vowed to field a competitive team this year and is especially high on Colin Moran. The 25-year-old third baseman was acquired from the Astros in the deal that sent Cole to Houston. Moran, who has appeared in just 16 MLB games over the last 2 seasons, is already penciled in as the starter ahead of veteran David Freese. Here are 3 things on the Pirates' to-do list this spring. 1. Settle on a third outfielder. One of the reasons the Pirates traded McCutchen to the Giants is the club's optimism in promising rookie Austin Meadows. This spring will be key for Meadows to prove he can be an everyday big league player. He will have competition, however, from 24-year-olds Jordan Luplow and Christopher Bostic, veteran Sean Rodriguez and free agent acquisition Daniel Nava. The Pirates know 2 of the 3 starting outfielders will be Starling Marte and Gregory Polanco. It's the third spot that must be won this spring. 2. Fill out the rotation with Cole gone. Jameson Taillon is expected to slide into the top spot in the rotation. Taillon is 13-11 with a 3.98 ERA and 210 strikeouts to 63 walks over 237 2/3 innings. The last 2 seasons behind Taillon are a slew of question marks, with 6 players vying for 4 spots. Former Yankees pitcher Ivan Neva, who was dealt to the Pirates in 2016, will likely fill one of those spots. The 31-year-old right-hander was 11-14 with a 4.14 ERA last year. Then there are 25-year-olds Joe Musgrove, Chad Gould, Trevor Williams and Stephen Breaux, and 24-year-old Tyler Glasnow, none of whom have more than 2 years of MLB experience. 3. Be patient and creative. There will be growing pains this season. Hurdle will do everything he can to win games, but he may have to tinker with the lineup. Because the Pirates have such a young roster, finding the right mix could take some time. Now that McCutchen is gone, first baseman Josh Bell is probably the best hitter in the lineup, but even he's just 25 years old and struck out 117 times in 549 at-bats last year. The Pirates might not have the same starting 9 in consecutive games early in the season as Hurdle figures out the roster. The place is going to explode when we win it all, Hurdle told reporters last Wednesday via the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. The place is going to explode. I still believe that. I look for the opportunity to stay and be a part of that. That unwavering belief. Getty Images by Ron Clements. Third place won't cut it in Street. There were some calling for manager Mike Matheny's head after a disappointing 2017 season that saw the Cardinals finish 83-79 behind the Brewers and Cubs in the National League Central after making the playoffs in his first 4 seasons, including a trip to the World Series in 2013. Matheny's team has missed the postseason the past 2 years, more opening day schedule of every MLB team. Pennants and championships are the expectation in Street. Louis, and another disappointing season could result in Matheny getting his walking papers. Here are 3 things on the Cardinals' to-do list this spring. 1. Find a closer. Luke Gregerson is penciled in as the Cardinals' closer, but the former Astros reliever might not be the man to finish off games. He had 4 saves last season but has 66 in 112 career opportunities. Gregerson signed a 2-year deal with the Cardinals in December, but the team might want to consider adding another free agent like former Rockies closer Greg Holland. The Cardinals had a revolving door at closer last season, and Sung Hwan Oh led the team with 20 saves in 24 opportunities. He also went 1-6 with a 4.10 ERA, not ideal for someone who typically is pitching an inning at most in most games. Holland is one of the best free agents remaining and had 41 saves for the Rockies last season. He reportedly turned down a 3-year deal from the Rockies, who'd then signed Wade Davis. Colorado's loss could be Street. Louis' gain if the Cardinals are willing to spend what it takes to land Holland. 2. Keep up with the Cubs and Brewers outside of a trade for former Marlins outfielder Marcell Ozuna. The Cardinals had a fairly quiet off-season. Meanwhile, the Cubs bolstered their rotation with Yu Darvish, and the Brewers landed outfielders Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich. Louis enters spring knowing it was 5-14 against the Cubs last year and 8-11 against the Brewers. A 3-4 mark against the Dodgers was the team's only sub-.500 mark against another NL opponent. If the Cardinals are going to leapfrog the Cubs and Brewers in the division, it starts with beating those teams head-to-head. The Cardinals need to make a splash between now and March 29. 3. Set the table for a meaningful in-season trade. The Cubs and Brewers have shown they will be aggressive, and the Cardinals must match or exceed it. The Cardinals made 3 in-season trades involving players on their active roster. In each trade, the Cardinals received a minor league prospect. While that's nice for the future, it didn't prevent the Cardinals from finishing 3rd in the NL Central. If the Cardinals can upgrade at any position, it begins with assessing the immediate future during camp, both within the organization and scouting others. That sets the table for a spring signing or maybe a meaningful in-season trade while still in contention. Given that opportunity, they must do it or it will be another year of disappointment in the Gateway City. Getty Images by Alec Brzezinski. The Padres have not made the postseason since 2006, and they face a tough road to break that streak this season playing in the loaded National League West. San Diego made some nice moves this offseason, acquiring Freddie Galvis from the Phillies and signing Eric Hosmer. Galvis, 28, has underrated power and a great glove. But will they pay off? More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Here are 3 things on the Padres' to-do list. 1. Change the culture. The Padres have been a losing team for so long, it's hard to imagine them as postseason contenders. Adding Eric Hosmer to an already intriguing lineup gives them a chance to make noise in the NL West. Hosmer and Will Myers give the Padres 2 power bats with some speed in the middle of the order, which could ease the pain of the struggling rotation. If the Padres combine to a new attitude and actually believe they have what it takes to succeed, they could give some of the division's heavy hitters something to think about. 2. Fix the rotation. This is likely something the Padres can't fix this spring, but they can at least get started on it. Currently, San Diego lacks star power in the rotation. Void of any recognizable names, it's hard to imagine the Padres becoming serious playoff threats with the arms currently on the roster. The remaining free agent pool would do little to help, unless they splurged on Lance Lynn or Alex Cobb, which seems unlikely. For now, the Padres should use the spring to see which young pitchers have the stuff to remain in the rotation long-term and try to build around them. Point 3. Get the most out of Manuel Margot and Hunter Renfroe. It wouldn't be a stretch to say Hunter Renfroe and Manuel Margot are being groomed as the faces of the franchise. Margot's speed and Renfroe's power are perfect complements to one another. They are above-average outfielders, and they were top prospects before breaking into the majors full-time last season. Margot slashed 263.313.409 with 13 home runs and 17 stolen bases in 126 games, and Renfroe hit .231, .284, .467 with 26 home runs in 122 games. Both need to take a big step in 2018, especially with consistency at the plate. Renfroe is facing the biggest challenge. Margot enters the spring as the everyday center fielder between Hosmer and Myers. If Renfroe struggles, his playing time will dwindle. But if he and Margot reach the full potential, the Padres could be dangerous offensively. Getty Images by Alec Brzezinski. The Giants finished last season tied for the worst record in MLB, 64-98 with the Tigers, but a couple of high-profile off-season trades may put them back on the map. San Francisco orchestrated a trade for Rays third baseman Evan Longoria, and then followed it up with a bold move for Pirates outfielder Andrew McCutchen. The two former All-Stars are going to be asked to produce runs to help the Giants' struggling lineup. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Here are 3 things on the Giants' spring to-do list. 1. Another starting pitcher. The Giants have already done an admirable job bolstering the lineup, but the rotation needs added depth. Madison Bumgarner, Johnny Cueto and Jeff Samardzija are a formidable 1, 2, 3, but the bottom of the rotation is filled with inexperience and question marks. Having already spent a fair amount of money this offseason, it appears unlikely the Giants will make a run at Jake Arrieta, but he would be the perfect arm to add. Still a legitimate number 2 pitcher, Arrieta would slide into the number 3 role in San Francisco, giving the Giants 4 postseason starters. Point 2. Add another outfielder. Austin Jackson and McCutchen have already been brought in, but Jackson hasn't been an everyday player for a couple of seasons now, and the Giants lack overall outfield depth. The Giants had been linked to free agents Jared Dyson and Lorenzo Cain, but both are off the market now. Carlos Gomez and John Jay are the top free agents still available. San Francisco must decide whether to continue looking at free agents, and, if so, how much they're willing to spend and for how many years. 3. Erase last season's gloom. It's hard entering spring training with a positive mindset when the season before went so poorly. The Giants face the tough task of trying to contend for a postseason spot in a loaded division on the heels of a devastating season. Bruce Bochy's first order of business will be getting everyone's mind in the right place. 2 high-profile additions should help the transition, plus the Giants have had World Series success in recent seasons, which makes it easier. Still, with the Dodgers, Rockies, Diamondbacks and Giants all are filled with playoff aspirations, the NL West is not the division to be in this year. Getty Images by Thomas Lotter. Mariners finished 3rd in the AL West with a 78-84 record in 2017, and after a couple of key additions to the roster in the off-season, they are confident they can make a run at the playoffs. Seattle has possibly the best left-handed starter in the game, not named Clayton Kershaw, in James Paxton, and still has Felix Hernandez, so the Mariners will have a chance to once again have a good rotation. They do have some questions to ask, though, before the season starts. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. So what is on the to-do list this spring? 1. Get D. Gordon comfortable. Gordon has played 711 MLB games, not one has come in center field. That, though, is where the Mariners have him penciled in on the depth chart. Job no. 1 this spring training is getting Gordon ready to play in the outfield when the season rolls around. It shouldn't be too hard, though. Gordon is a fantastic athlete who has all the attributes to succeed in center. Point 2. determine the leadoff man. Gordon's addition presents another interesting question for the Mariners, and that is who the leadoff man will be. Gene Segura was Seattle's leadoff hitter last season and batted first in 119 of 125 games last season. Gordon has led off 607 times in 711 career games played. Both hit better in that spot than any other spot in their careers. So who is the leadoff man? It may seem like a simple fix, as one could just be penciled into the no-2 spot, but that position in the lineup can have very different responsibilities. It may not be a big deal, but it's something to figure out. Point 3. Figure out the no-4 fifth starter. Paxton is a great number 1, Hernandez is a savvy number 2, and Mike Leake was very good after he was acquired at the trade deadline. Beyond that, it's hard to figure out who will get the starts. They have several options with Erasmo Ramirez, Marco Gonzalez and Ariel Miranda for the back end of the rotation. Who will they choose? That remains to be seen, but the first few starts in spring training will go a long way in determining those spots. Getty Images by Alec Brzezinski. The Rays finished third in the crowded AL East last season, surprising many with a young team. More roster losses this offseason appear to have Tampa Bay set for a rebuilding process, but they never seem to go away. Evan Longoria was traded to the Giants, and a few more veterans are linked with moves out of Tampa Bay, but the Rays still have enough talent to contend for a postseason spot. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Here are 3 things on the Rays' to-do list this spring. 1. Figure out what to do with Chris Archer. Nearly every contending team has reportedly expressed some sort of interest in Archer this offseason, with the Brewers and Twins the latest to circulate through the rumor mill. Tampa Bay and Archer have both stated that the All-Star will likely be a Rays starter this season, but the rumors won't go away. Archer has 4 years of team control remaining on his team-friendly contract, meaning the Rays can ask a lot in return for the 29-year-old. Teams could balk at a high asking price because despite Archer's high strikeout numbers, 249 last season, he's been inconsistent. 4.02 ERA in 2016 followed by 4.07 ERA last year. The Rays may be more inclined to move Archer in the summer if things don't work out, but it might help them to move him now. Point 2. Figure out long-term plans. Somehow, the Rays always seem to be teetering on the edge of rebuilding and contending. They usually feature a roster with few household names, but finish the season with a winning record. However, their current roster needs work. The lineup after losing Longoria looks void of any real star power, especially after designating Corey Dickerson, 27 home runs last season, for assignment. If the Rays do intend to compete this season, they need to hold on to Archer and add a couple more competent bats to help supply some runs. Point 3. Continue developing Blake Snell, Jake Faria. The 2 young Rays pitchers impressed last season as starters. Faria, 24, went 5-4 with a 3.43 ERA and 84 strikeouts in 86 2/3 innings. Snell, 25, went 5-7 with a 4.04 ERA and 119 strikeouts in 129 1/3 innings, proving the Rays have a bright future set up for the rotation. But the Rays may need both pitchers to take a big leap this season. They're young, both were highly regarded prospects that could rise to stardom as soon as this year. One of the Rays' main goals this spring should be keeping Faria and Snell healthy, while helping them develop their skill set. Getty Images by Thomas Lotter. Rangers finished 4th in the AL West in 2017 and lost 8 of the last 10 games. As bad as that sounds, it is misleading. Texas was 3rd in the league in home runs, 237, 9th in RBIs, 756, and 6th in the league in fielding percentage, .982. The Rangers have young talent and some decent pitching, but ran into injury problems, which really hurt them throughout the year. The season could be much different if they tweak a few things early on. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. So what is on the to-do list this spring? 1. Make round Odor Walker's Odor goes. So will the Rangers over the next several years. The 24-year-old is coming off a 30-home run, 7.5 RBI season, but also a year in which he batted .204 with a .252 on-base percentage. That's not good enough. The Rangers have to get it into his mind that he needs to be more selective at the plate. Oda was tied for 202nd in all of baseball with 32 walks on the year. Only Royals shortstop Alcides Escobar and Mariners center fielder D. Gordon walked less than the Rangers' second baseman in 2017. If Oda is going to be a table setter for Texas, which they want him to be, this problem has to be addressed, and spring training is a great place to do it. Point 2. Extend Mike Minor. Don't mean extend his contract, as Minor agreed to a 3-year, $28 million deal this offseason, we mean innings. The Rangers plan to use Minor as a starter this season, but the 30-year-old didn't throw more than 2 2/3 innings in an outing in 2017. He has not thrown 6 innings in a game since August 12, 2016, and that was in the minors. He has to get used to going deeper into a game again, and the Rangers will stretch him out more and more as spring training rolls along. Point 3. Consider Ronald Guzman over Joey Gallo. Ronald Guzman was a more highly regarded prospect than Omar Mazara when the two players were initially coming up through the Rangers system. But Mazara developed more power and did so at a younger age, and everyone forgot about Guzman. But the Rangers should give him a chance to make his name at first base and consider either relegating Joey Gallo to a bench role or getting him more seasoning at AAA. Gallo batted .209 with 196 strikeouts last season, and while he did hit 41 home runs, he struck out far too much for a starting first baseman. Guzman is a more steady player, batting worse than .270 just once in the minors. He could give Texas a much-needed reliable bat in the middle of the lineup, as well as one that makes consistent contact. By Alec Brzezinski, injuries and inconsistent pitching knocked the Blue Jays out of playoff contention last season, but they made some interesting moves this winter to get back on track. With 2018 season drawing near, the Blue Jays still have a few holes to fill with free agents available on the open market. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. Here are 3 things on the Blue Jays' to-do list. 1. Find another starting pitcher. Toronto's rotation currently looks like a collection of number 3s and 4s. Marcus Stroman has ace-like stuff, but has been inconsistent throughout his career. Aaron Sanchez looked poised for stardom 2 seasons ago, but missed almost all of last year with blister issues. J.A. Happ and Marco Estrada are formidable arms, but the Blue Jays could use another playoff-caliber starter to really compete for a postseason spot. The Blue Jays have orchestrated trades with the Tigers before, so procuring Michael Fulmer could be an intriguing option for Toronto. Point 2. Figure out long-term strategy. For a while this offseason it seemed as though Toronto would trade Josh Donaldson to a contending team. But the Blue Jays decided they weren't done contending and kept him for themselves. They then pulled off quiet but nice trades for Randall Grichuk and Yangervis Solarte, signifying a winning strategy. Despite the positive offseason, the Blue Jays still have holes across the board and likely need to dip back into the free agent market to really push for the postseason. Grabbing guys like Carlos Gonzalez and Greg Holland would help strengthen the roster in a loaded American League East. The Blue Jays could also stand pat. They possess one of the best farm systems in baseball, so they could decide to keep their stars one more year, then fully rebuild next season when some of the top prospects are ready for the big leagues. Point 3. Get Troy Tulowitzki back on track. The 5-time All-Star and 2-time Gold Glove winner has suffered through 2 straight disappointing seasons in a Blue Jays uniform. Last year, Tulowitzki hit 7 home runs with 26 RBIs with a .249, .30, .378 line in just 66 games. Toronto needs him back near All-Star level this season. Getty Images by Thomas Lotter. Nationals have arguably the best roster in the National League, and yet they couldn't get out of the first round of the playoffs last season, losing to the Cubs in 5 games after a 97-65 season. This season they return basically their entire roster as they try to make the most out of possibly the last season with Bryce Harper in the lineup. More opening day schedule of every MLB team. So what is on the to-do list this spring? 1. Get Daniel Murphy healthy. Daniel Murphy is almost as important to the Nationals lineup as Harper, and when Murphy was hurt last season, Washington's offense stalled. He is coming off of off-season knee surgery, and the team isn't exactly sure when he'll be back to 100%. Priority no. 1 in the spring is getting him comfortable in the box again and ready to anchor the lineup. Point 2. decide on a fifth starter. This is one of the less pressing issues the Nationals have, but it is something they have to address. Who gets the fifth spot? Do they put in A.J. Cole, who was very good at the end of the season but is getting closer to arbitration, or do they go with Eric Fedor, who may have the higher ceiling? For what it's worth, Cole doesn't have any options left, meaning the team could lose him if they sent him down, and Fedor does, so this may make their decision for them. But if Fedor makes the team better, it may be prudent to give him the spot. Point 3. Make a decision on catcher. Matt Wieters is a great option if he is healthy and ready, but he was bad last season with a .225 batting average and 10 home runs. As a result, the Nationals were 24th in the league in home runs by catches and 29th in batting average. This may be the one hole in the team's lineup, and if they have to trade for Marlins catcher J.T. Realmuto either in what little time is left before opening day or at the trade deadline, it may be the best idea.